we've heard all the problems. We know where the problems are. What we are here today is to come up with some solutions that make sense, not for one organization, but for everybody, all the citizens in the city of Chicago, west side of Chicago, as well as the north side, south side, east side, if you will. Every citizen. That's what this is about. It ain't a point finger competition. So we're going to get
We're
right
here to
to
listen today. We also have Brother Enoch here from Hip Hop Detox, and we'll also be joined by nationally syndicated radio host, my man Warren Valentine, the People's Attorney. So let's get right into it. I want to talk to Chicago Police Superintendent Garry McCarthy because he's on limited time right now. Mr. McCarthy, you just said something very, very important, that you're willing, and the Chicago Police, I assume as well, are willing to work with anyone who is willing to work with you all. Expound on that, and what does the community need to do with the police department to close the gap that I see that has been between the police department and the community for years?
Okay, closing the gap, that's a big issue. That's a long time in coming. You know, we've done a lot of things wrong in policing in this country. I'm willing to admit that. But this goes back 200-300 years to the time when Pilgrims came here, and we started developing from that, and the African American experience in this country. Who has been the people who have been enforcing those laws that were problematic for the African American community over these years? And that's, to me, where it all starts. And it starts with the recognition of how we got here and a figuring out of how we're going to move forward by first confronting the issue. Right? Recognition is the first step towards reconciliation. So that's what I bring to the table. It's one of those things that a lot of police chiefs in this country are afraid to talk about. I'm not afraid to talk about it because it's out there and we've got to address it. The second thing that I just want to respond to what you said is real simple. If you've been watching the way that we're doing narcotics enforcement, we're doing something called the Wraparound strategy. And this is a vision of the mayor of mine in how we're taking back corners, individual markets from narcotics dealers, cleaning them up and filling those voids with the community standing on the corners with us. And that's just a small example of the change in mindset in policing that we're bringing to the city of Chicago now. Because we have a recognition that while we can talk about reducing crime, we're not going to be able to cure crime unless the community stands up and we're working hand in hand with each other, using all the resources that are available to us to turn that tide.
We've got to expand after-school options for our children, which I think the mayor and the superintendent are talking about doing. The other thing is it's not just about behavior. Behavior is learned through the media images. I think the Stop the Hits kind of initiative is helpful, so we start talking about it. But we have got to replace the level of poverty in certain neighborhoods with some reinvestment in those communities.
Please get in here.
You cannot keep saying, oh, you know, it's just these are bad kids. These are bad communities because they have no infrastructure to change the behavior. You've got to have some jobs. Jobs in, guns out.
Hang on one second, Warren. Hang on one second.
Please get in here.
Warren, hang on one second. We got to check out what's going on our social media. Facebook, Sonia Blakey, Inspiration 1390.
Thank you, Ramoski. And yeah, what I'm getting here on Facebook perfectly ties into what we're talking about. Many people are talking about the parents need to step up their role as it relates to the violence. I'll read a couple comments here. It says it starts at home. The mothers, the fathers, the brothers, the sisters, uncles, and cousins of the known violent offenders have to step up to the plate and explain to them that this type of behavior is destructive and others is unacceptable. Also here they say if they put more police on the street, then the violence will stop. To me, that's not true. If the parents get off their behind and find out what their children are doing, then hey, perhaps we can have a solution there.
Every day we say on the radio, it's 8:30. Do you know where your children are?
Exactly.
Not to tell you how to parent, just a friendly reminder. You had these children.
Right.
Now it's your time to parent.
And as far as the parents are concerned, you have single mothers out here who are working 2, 3, sometimes 4 jobs to keep a roof over their baby's head. So no, they're not home the way they should be, and their kids are being raised by the streets. But that's when the community, the church, and other people like the schools come in and pick up the slack. It takes a village to raise a child. Now, I'm not giving the parents a pass, but I'm saying this: we can't just say this is all on the parents and it ain't on nobody else, because the legal system is the new Jim Crow system in America. If you go back and look at what's going on in America today compared to what happened when we look in the past, see, a lot of people don't understand the history of America. When we had Reconstruction, when blacks were allowed to first become politicians in this country, they created something that was called the vagrancy laws. The vagrancy laws were simply laws that if you could not prove you were working, you were incarcerated and given a fine of up to $5,000 in 1910, which kept you in jail for 5 to 6 years, sometimes to the rest of your life. When you fast forward to today, what they did during the vagrancy time, they locked them up and they rented them out to corporations at cheap labor. That's exactly what's going on today. If you want to stop all this violence, it's easy. You get economic empowerment into these poverty-stricken communities. Give these young people a chance to work, give them jobs. Number two, the war on drugs, we need to end the war on drugs, because it's the war on us. They're locking these kids up ridiculously over a little bit of marijuana, and I applaud Mayor Emanuel, Rahm Emanuel, for taking a step to look at changing that. I applaud him for that. And the third thing is this: we all have to step up to the plate. We have to mentor, we need to talk to. Look, if your kid is playing with a kid out there or is friends with a kid out there who you know is doing wrong, even if it's not your kid, you still should go at least talk to that kid, because if you take the time to put something in that kid, you may be the one that changes that kid's life, because mama might be working 4 or 5 jobs, daddy may be incarcerated, and one other problem. We don't have big mamas today. We had big mamas when I was growing up. I grew up in the 90s. We see big mama today, she in the club with baby. They both hitting on you. So we need to make it now where we get big mamas, and
Warren,
sometimes we don't have to say that.
Warren Valentine.
We're going to need you to breathe, brother. We're gonna need you to breathe.
Save some of that for your show, man. Hey.
We love you, Warren. We love you.
We
A
love you,
very
Warren.
passionate Warren Valentine. Mr. Superintendent, would you like to address any of that?
Warren, sure, I want to address a lot of it, but we don't have time, because he put a lot of information out there. But what you did do, Warren, was you made 2 points that I was really making. You really supported them. Who was enforcing those laws that you're talking about, those vagrancy laws back in the day? Who was enforcing
You mind if I
segregation?
make a comment
enforcing
to
Jim Crow?
what the superintendent's
That was the
saying? Can you
police
use your mic for a
And
second?
that
me ask.
narrative
Let me ask.
exists
You
in
better
the
ask
community
Tony.
today through the history of African Americans in this country. And I think we failed to recognize that. I think we failed to talk
Tony,
about it. I think
Tony's gonna
everybody's afraid of it.
let me
And the first thing
ask
we
a
have to
question
do is
about
acknowledge
the
it.
superintendent.
The second thing that I want to talk about real quick is what you said, Warren, about the war on narcotics. Law enforcement will never fix the narcotics problem in this country because it is a criminalized social problem.
Yep.
The policies are doing exactly what you said, which is driving up incarceration rates, and it's doing nothing to fix the narcotics problem in the country. Narcotics is not the crime. Narcotics is the cause of a lot of crime. It causes the violence, and it causes people to commit other crimes to get money to buy narcotics. That's why I'm talking about the way we're focusing on the corners. And we're doing it in a holistic fashion, which is first locking up the drug dealers. I'm sorry, I'm not going to stop locking up drug dealers. But what I am going to tell you is we're not going to try and fix the narcotics problem in this country. We're going to eliminate individual narcotics markets by holding those corners, bringing social services to the corners, cleaning up the corners, organizing the community into a safe haven community that we support through the police department, then move on to the next one.
And I can't speak on the statistics of gun violence, but I can speak to the senseless violence that takes place here. I became acquainted with a group of mothers that have experienced a form of this senseless violence, and now they work together to address the continued violence. We work with a lot of different groups. We work with United for Cause, Purpose Over Pain, and Chicago.
He says he'd like to answer the
Pain.
question.
We work
Is it okay?
Father
Can I
Program
ask a question?
and with
Okay.
Ceasefire. I work with all you guys. I go out and hand out flyers when something happens. I don't know what, I think that if we can get more people to come out in these neighborhoods, it might slow down what's going on if they know that we're going to be there.
Thank you so
We
much.
really appreciate your comment, and of course, our love always goes out to you and your family. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. 1-866.
Stay strong.
594-4673. We'd like to thank Superintendent McCarthy, who is now leaving us. Thank you so much, sir. All right, we're going to take another comment from the social media. Sonia Blakey's here with the web comments coming in, and they're coming in. Go ahead.
Yes, they're coming in strong.
But this is a strong show.
Got an interesting one here. They're asking for stricter rules on manufacturers and retailers of guns. They say they should be able to trace gun purchases before there's a crime. Gun owners need to have license renewals, so they're saying for stricter rules on gun purchases and retailers. Who could address that?
I think that's extremely important. As we look at public policy, you can now purchase a gun online. There are no requirements in terms of identification, background checks. When you purchase them online, you can go and get a kit to make an assault weapon from a gun shop or a gun show. So we ought to move to lobby for better
Well, I guess there's really no freedom of speech in Chicago. I was here to ask Superintendent Garry McCarthy a couple of questions, and as you can see, he ran out at the thought of being asked a question by William Kelly, Washington Times Communities. I was going to say, first of all, the callers are all talking about family values, personal responsibility, but these leaders, the superintendent in particular, are placing blame on, Fu Manchu, I don't know what, from 2,000 years ago. The fact of the matter is that it comes down to family values, it comes down to personal responsibility, and it comes down to the proper deployment of police officers. If we have police officers in Chicago taking Obama VIPs, okay, Mrs. Joe Biden, lingerie shopping, that is not a good use of Chicago police officers. In fact, we've had 2 murders since that video was made here in the city of Chicago. Maybe that's what the superintendent did not want to talk about here tonight.
Violent crimes in this city can be traced directly back to Chuck